Hi everyone, welcome in Semantics and Pragmatics class. And in this meeting, we will discuss the study of meaning.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
So, there are three disciplines are concerned with the semantic study of meanings. We have psychology, philosophy, and linguistics. Psychologists are interested in how individual human learns, how they retain, recall, or lose informations, how they classify, make judgment, and solve the problem. So, in other words, how the human mind seeks meaning and work with them, it is the concern of the psychologists. While the philosophers of language are concerned with how humans know, so how any particular fact that human know or accept as true is related to other possible facts. And linguists want to understand how language works. So if we talk about linguistics, it deals with the meaning expressed by the modulations of speaker voice. So people process by which hearers and readers relate new informations to the informations they already have. If we talk about language, make sure that the concept of language itself is humans' belongings. In this case, the animals have some system for communicating with other members of their species. So only humans have a language which allows them to produce and understand each other's. We have two things regarding to the human language. First, the human language is stimulus free, and the second one, the human language is creative. It means humans produce a new utterance with others that can be understood. So the utterance here consists of words in a particular sequence, and the words itself consist of sound units or phonemes in a particular order. For a normal people, they produce a language with the utterance and also producing the sound. However, for them who cannot produce the sound, they may use some sign and it calls sign language. So when did people start producing the language? By the age of 18 months, a children is likely to be producing two words utterance. For example, they may produce like daddy bye-bye, mama shoes, or other utterance. Soon the utterances become more and more complex, and these utterances are clearly invented, not just repetitions of what parents may have said. Okay, and another point, if we talk about language, it will relate to the grammar. So people use the terms of grammar to mean two things. First is implicit knowledge that speaker has, and the explicit descriptions and explanations of it by the linguist. So the grammar here also related to the phonology, syntax, and morphology. Well, I think it's quite simple for the explanations of those three things related to the grammar. In this case, the phonology is the knowledge or the descriptions of how speech sound are organized in a particular language. So it is related to sounds. While syntax is the knowledge or descriptions of the classes of word, sometimes called part of speech, and how members of these classes go together to form phrases and the sentence. So syntax here focuses on the form, phrases, and sentence. The last thing, morphology, is the descriptions or knowledge of word formations. So if you find like the form of cat with cats, or maybe connect and connecting, there is additional things there is additional, we call it like prefix or suffixes. So that's the concern of morphology. Okay, then we go to the language meaning. First is anomalous. Look at the example of this part. Henry drew a picture. Henry laughed. The picture laughed. Picture a Henry drew. You have four sentences. So the example of 1A and 1B is meaningful if you listened someone say this sentence. Henry drew a picture or Henry laughed. And it is different with 1C and 1D if you listen like the picture laughed or picture a Henry drew. It might attain meaning in some children's story or like merely a sequence word for a 1D. And the next types of language meaning is paraphrase. I think you're quite familiar with the paraphrase. So the sentence that makes equivalent statement about the same entities, we call it paraphrase. Look at the example 2A and 2B. Rebecca got home before Robert. It's same, the meaning is similar with Robert got home before Rebecca. So the changing of statement or sentence into another statement or sentence with a similar meaning, with the same meaning, we call it paraphrase. It's same with the 2C example. Robert arrived at home after Rebecca, or 2D. Rebecca got home later than Robert. It's same. Okay, now we continue to synonym. So this is the word that have same sense in given context. Look at the example. Where did you purchase these tools? Or where did you buy these tools? The word purchase and buy is synonym. They have similar meaning. Another things, contradictory and antonym is quite similar, but for the contradictory, we focus on the ideas of the statement or the sentence. Look at the example. It is a new phone I bought. And the second example, it has broken screen. So the concept, if you imagine a new phone, everything should be okay in a good screen, in a good display, in a good form, shape, or even the colors is still totally perfect. While another example, if you find two statements, first like Cindy goes to school at 7 a.m. and then another statement you heard the sky is dark. So we have contradictory concept with the first statement which implies that in the morning the sky should be blue. Well, I hope you got what I mean, and we continue to the antonyms. So if you have two words that makes opposite statement, we call it antonyms. And look at the example. The trains depart at 12:25. The trains arrives at 12:25. So we have opposite meaning with the words departs and arrives. Okay, we continue to semantic future. Look at the example. If you see these, we have street, lane, road, and path have a common element of meaning. So we call semantic future. And next, ambiguous. Yeah, if you see this statement, Mary took the sick parakeet to a small animal hospital. Focus on a small animal hospital. So it's like ambiguous because sometimes we have two understanding of these phrases. So the first one, is it small hospital for animals or is it hospital for small animals? That is why if the sentence, phrase, or clauses have two meanings, we concerned that this is ambiguous. Go on to another types of language meaning, adjacency pair. We will find it in a conversations. For example, if there is someone asked to another person, when did you last see my brother? There are optional answer. The first is 10 minutes ago. Second one, last Tuesday. Another answer may be around noon, or maybe I think it was on the 1st June. So if there is a possible answer, so if there are several possible answers with the first statement and it's still related, we concern that this is types of language meaning of adjacency pair. Alright, next is entailment. The first example is there are tulips in the garden. The second example is there are flowers in the garden. So when you see this example and you assumes that the first example and the second example has a similar situations with the similar topics is the garden, we call it entailment. Okay, finally, the last but not least is presuppositions. So presuppositions proposes to convey message, to deliver informations in some pieces of knowledge. Go straight to the example. A. Mark usually drives his Datsun to work. And B. There is a person named Mark. So the focus here is on the person, Mark. And C. Mark works. Still on Mark and also emphasize that he is working. The fourth example, there is Datsun that belongs to Mark. So the focus is changing to the Datsun that is stated in the first example and also still mentioning the subject, the person, Mark. And the last example, Mark knows how to drive an automobile. So those statements is focusing on Mark that can drives and has Datsun and he is working. That is presuppositions. Well, I think that's it for these meetings. I hope you may differentiate the language meaning, and for your exercises, for your practice, you may check in descriptions box below, and I'll see you next week for another topics.